Hey, so friend of mine asked for a quick tutorial on how I age these plastic skeleton skulls. This one's from the Dollar Tree. Um, but if you get any plastic skulls that are just a little bit too white for your liking and you want them to look like they're aged or whatever, I'm going to show you what I do. So you're only going to need two things. You're going to need this, which is Waverly Antique Wax Paint. And you're going to want one of these foam beauty blenders from the Dollar Tree. When you go to the Dollar Tree, they're going to come in a big pack like this from Sassy and Chic or Chick or whatever the hell. It says cosmetic wedges. You get 28 of them in there for $1.25. The only thing is, though, you want to make sure that they are like this hard foam material. They do have some that are literally that look like a sponge. Like as you can see on this one, it doesn't really look like a sponge. Like it literally, I don't know. It's just, it's nice and smooth, but it's going to give you the texture that you want on top of this skull when you start with your paint. So basically, all I normally do is I have just a hole in the top of my paint. So I get this a little bit that's actually on top of the lid. We're going to dab our beauty blender in there. I'm going to dab off just a little bit of excess. And literally all you do is just dab it on. Now, if you create any kind of harshness, if you don't like any of this harshness that's up there, just kind of slide it a little bit and that'll take off the extra as you go. So then you'll get like this brown tinge. Okay? If, before you do this, you want to darken any of these lines that are not as dark as this one, what you could do is you could take a small brush, you could dip it into your paint, just a tad bit, and you can actually go inside of these lines with that paint. Now, for this step, you'd want to do this obviously before you go ahead and do your distressing on this skull. And the only reason why I say that is because if you do a black in here, which is what I did to one of my other ones, you let it dry. Because this is a chalk-based paint, when you go to paint your brown on, all you would really have to do is just kind of scuff up the edges where you may have gotten it onto the smooth surface, and it'll stay in the crease like these are. Versus where this one doesn't have anything in there, and for instance, like I just put that brown in there, it's already out. So if you want to have a defined line for your skull's outline and stuff, then you want to go ahead and go in here with some black paint and then let it dry. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I filled in all of the lines on his skull with some, I did it with black. I just took out this black acrylic paint, which I got from, this is from Target, but whatever. Any kind of black paint will work. If you have the ink by Waverly, that's their black chalk paint, you can use that as well, but any black paint will work. And basically, like I was saying earlier, if you have any of this black paint that's on the outside, like if you rub it, it's going to go ahead and take everything from your outside of your skeleton, just a little bit of scrub, show you, see how that line is still there, but then this one is still all kind of chunky and crappy. Same thing, you're just going to take this, you're going to run over top of all of your lines. It's going to keep everything that you put inside of the line there, but it's going to take out, it's going to take off all the extra. So if you're not too careful with a paintbrush, it's okay. It will just wipe right off because this plastic isn't coarse or anything. So and I'm just going to go around and I'm going to get rid of all this extra that is outside just really quickly. I started to distress it, and then I was like, no, it needs more blackened spots. And then also, if you get any of like this staining, if you can see that anyway, where some of the black is just kind of rubbing off on the plastic, that's okay, because that's just, again, going to give you more definition when you're painting this piece. Like, it's just going to add extra character to it. So don't get too hard bent on yourself if that crease is there. I'm denting his forehead. It's plastic, it pops right back out. So, go. Alright. The other thing too that you can do on these guys is if their eyes aren't too black or their nose isn't as black as you'd like it, you can always go ahead and of course add paint in those as well and give yourself some extra color. So here's our guy. Now let's get back into distressing him and making him look like he's a gooey kind of whatever. So he's not too shiny. He looks like he's aged. So just gonna dab this. And also, like, if you get done and there's patches that you don't like, because it's plastic, it will come right off. So you can always go ahead and take it off, like, but there's, you know, like just that little bit, you can already tell it's looking better. Now I'm going to tell you one thing that you don't want to do when you're doing this. Don't take your Beauty Blender and slide it, okay? Because you're going to have too many straight lines and you're not going to get any texture that way. And because this is supposed to be bone, you want it to have texture. So when you are dabbing it, you're getting like different textures, and you're not going to end up with any kind of lines or anything like that. If anything, you're going to have a little bit of a line from the actual Beauty Blender edge, in which case if you just keep going over that spot, those will all just even out, just kind of like a foundation. So as you can see, like this top is darker and then it's going lighter. You're just going to add more paint. Just go in. More paint you add, the darker it's going to be, obviously. If you don't want to go too dark, you can always go ahead and dab off more paint and then put it back on. But literally just, this is it. Like, you would think it would be a little bit more to it, but it's really not. Like, this is it. Oh, and then also make sure that wherever you're putting your finger, your paint is dry. Otherwise, it just comes up with your finger. I always end up with so much paint all over me. But this is it. And then I would say, I normally let mine sit for about a day, just to make sure that the paint is completely dry on my skull. I don't want to go ahead and handle it because of where the paint comes off so easily on my fingers, that after I've taken time to distress him, I now have a fingerprint like somewhere on the skull. Okay, and here he is all dry. So I think he definitely looks better than what he did. And you know, you're taking like, I don't know, a couple of minutes. We'll say 10 minutes to go ahead and paint him and distress him. And then he looks a heck of a lot better than what he did. So I hope you guys like the video. Enjoy. Have fun.